I'm here to kick off our mobility series with week 1. So these segments are meant to complement all of the weekly programming that you've been getting and give you some new ideas for accessory work and keep your joints moving well through this time. So format is going to be mostly me talking through the movements. We're not going to go through the full rep and set scheme in this video. I more so want to use this time to talk through some points of performance and give you some considerations so that when you do try out these movements, you're set up for success. So this week we're going to start with hips. With all the squatting we've been doing, your hips are probably pretty fatigued, so we want to give them a couple of different movements, different multi-planar movements to kind of keep them moving well. So we're going to start off with a hip flexor stretch, and chances are you've probably done this before, but I want to break it down a little bit more. So if we're in this half kneeling position and we want to stretch the front of our hip, if I don't do anything in the lower extremities to set up and just move forward, I might feel a little bit of a stretch in my hip, but what I mostly feel is my low back arching. And you can see if I start here and move forward, I'm getting that increased low back arch. So instead, I'm going to come back to the start position, and now this time, I want you to squeeze your glute on that support leg. Squeeze your glute and also tilt your pelvis. So tuck your tailbone and do a posterior pelvic tilt. I already feel more of a targeted stretch in the front of my hip, but if you need a little bit more, you can lunge forward from here, keeping that glute squeezed. That's key. And that is going to keep your lumbar spine more supported, more in that neutral position, and it's also going to let you target the front of the hip a little bit more effectively. So that one's really good to do if you're spending a lot of time sitting, people working from home, in and out of Zoom meetings all day. Whenever you get up to refill your water bottle or grab a snack, try that one out. Try 3 reps for about 20 seconds each side. And that's going to be your new and improved hip flexor stretch. So the next thing I want to talk about is starting to move in the rotational plane. So we move a lot in the sagittal plane, front and back with our hips when we're squatting, hinging, deadlifting, and we often forget about the other components that contribute to that stability. So internal, external rotation, ab and adduction of our hips are all really important parts to target as well. So this next one is going to be more of a mobility drill, and I'm going to have you sit in this position here. So your femurs, your thigh bones are going to be in an L shape. One is going to be coming straight out in front of you and the other out to the side. Now, the first thing to check here is to make sure that you're able to sit comfortably. That means that your hips are even and almost all of your butt is on the floor. If you find yourself way off to the side here, this is going to be your first step, is to really sit into that back hip a little bit and make sure that you're able to have that position comfortably. If at any point you're feeling a sharp pain, if something doesn't quite feel right, let me know, reach out, we'll talk through some progressions and we'll figure it out. But otherwise it is normal to feel stiffness or like an intense stretch. That's all good and well. So if you're not able to get here yet, work on sitting that hip down. Spend about 2 minutes in this position at a time to work on that mobility. Once you are able to get here, the next step is going to be to windshield wiper your legs back and forth. So you're going to move from this position to this position. And now I'm in that same configuration, just opposite. And again, check to make sure that you're able to sit completely on this side. It is normal to have a side that's tighter than the other one. For me, this side's a lot tighter, so I would spend some more time in this position before moving on. Once you feel comfortable with that, then your goal is going to be fluidity of movement and making it really smooth. So you want to be able to work back and forth without sitting back too much. So my glutes are in contact with the floor throughout this whole movement, and I'm not rounding my back and sitting back to achieve that. If that's you, spend some more time here. Work on moving slow. If you can only do a portion of the movement, there's your start. So that's gonna do it for our rotational work in the sitting position. The next thing I want to do is going to be some hip CARS. So CARS stands for Controlled Articular Rotations. And what that basically means is we're moving all throughout the joint capsule. We're doing some multiplanar movement of the hip and working on that transitional movement from one plane to the other and making it nice and smooth, kind of lubricating the joint capsule. So for today, we're going to do them in a quadruped position. So that means hands and knees. And we're going to stack our shoulders over our hands and our hips over our knees. And in this position, you want to keep the core engaged so that you remain with this nice flat back. First step here is going to be to move your weight over to one side and lift the other leg up. The goal for this position is to have your femur or your thigh bone parallel to the floor. If you can't get there, if you're coming up to here and then find that you have to arch your back to get that foot up, work on this move first. This is your drill. You're gonna just keep moving through that range of motion. Do these in front of a mirror to keep yourself accountable. And until you can get that thigh to be parallel with the ground, just stay here. Once you feel comfortable with that, once you have your thigh about parallel with the ground, then what we're going to do, without losing height, is rotate your leg around so it's out to the side. So I'm going to do that again. So we're here, we're going to keep that leg high, use the glutes to get into this awkward fire hydrant position. And then from there, bring the leg down. It's really easy to drop the knee and end up here. And you'll notice that your leg's not in line with the ground there. So really work to get that full range of motion through here. The other compensation I see, other than letting the knee drop, is sinking into that support leg. So I'm going to show you from the front. When I'm here, if I keep my core tight, I can support myself without sitting into this leg. If I don't, I end up shifting over to the side, and if I look down at my leg, my hip is now outside of my knee. So if that's you, do these against a wall. Set your environment up with a constraint so that it kind of cues your body to remain in that good alignment until you're able to support yourself there without the constraint. So those are hip CARS. Those are great to do. I like to do them before doing a bunch of squats. It kind of gets that multiplanar movement tapped into so you can really utilize it for stability when you're doing these movements. So the final piece of week 1 for our hips is going to be a drill that's going to help you build strength in the bottom of your squat. And I use this drill with almost all of my CrossFitters because a universal problem that happens in CrossFit is that we use a stretch reflex to get into the hole and out of the hole as quickly as possible when squatting, instead of actually using our muscles and building strength there. So a lot of CrossFitters are pretty weak in the bottom of their squat. So I'm going to show you a drill called the isometric sit squat. And this has been a game changer for me working with CrossFitters and really helping to dial into the intricacies of building strength in that hole. So what you're going to do is find a surface that's more or less going to put your legs at a 90-degree angle. 90 degrees of hip flexion, 90 degrees of knee flexion. So for me, I'm using a 20-inch box. And I'm going to show you what the movement looks like first. So I'm going to lean my trunk forward. I'm going to put some vertical force into the ground through my feet, and I'm going to unweight my glutes and lift up 1 inch and only 1 inch. I cannot stress this part enough. It's so easy to get into some momentum here and lift up a bunch. And for that, you're not really building strength, you're just using momentum and getting up out of a chair. So really be honest with yourself here. Push your feet into the ground, create some vertical force, and unweight yourself slowly. This transitional movement should be super slow, and it's really small. If you're doing them right, you'll feel your quads light up, you'll feel it in your hips. They get fatiguing pretty quick. If you're doing them wrong, you could go all day. So I'd be happy to, look at some videos of you guys performing these. I know they're pretty tough to get a handle on, and they're super easy to cheat. The biggest compensation, other than standing up too quick and using momentum that I see, is that people will lean too far forward. So if that's the case, then I don't have to do any work here. All I'm doing is using the weight of my trunk to lift up my glutes. So I'll tell patients to imagine that there's a wall in front of them and that you have to go up and not so much forward. Either that, or sometimes I'll hold my hand in front of their face so that, not now because of COVID, but previously that would be another cue to use, so that you really have that, that constraint where you have to kind of come up and not so much move forward. I'll do anywhere from 3 to 5 sets of 5 of these. Like I said, if you're doing them correctly, they get super hard really fast. They don't look like much, but they are really, really good at building that strength in the bottom of your squat, teaching your body how to use your glutes and posterior chain muscles to support yourself there so that you can move more efficiently in workouts. So, those are the isometric sit squats. I think that's going to do it for this week. That's all we got. If you have any questions or feedback, or want to talk through a movement or have me look at it, shoot me a video, shoot me an email, a message. I'd be happy to hear from you guys. Talk soon.